was coming out of his workshop with a large piece of fire-grade sheetrock. I said, "Hello, Dietrich, would you like some tofu I just made?" And he swung the sheetrock, and I was thrown to the ground because he hit me with it. And he looked at me, and instead of saying, "Can I help you?" he said, "Definitely not." I'd like to call up Sue Swick, who's also in the historical community. Sue?
Well, yeah, there's no way I'm going to top that. I don't remember when I met Dietrich. I do know that I knew him by 1980 when I lived in Rosendale for a few years with my husband and was barefoot, pregnant, and dancing in the street. And I came to know him over the years with different things. I was a reporter, a stringer for the Times-Herald-Record, covering Rosendale, and then later for the Rosendale News at Hyman. And one of the things that I had a problem with, for some reason, I do have some LD going on in that, but for some reason I could not, for the life of me, spell Dietrich. It didn't work. Finally got Werner down after a while, but Dietrich, no, that wasn't happening. So I came up with a great plan, which Dietrich wasn't fond of. I called him Diet Rich. Because he gave me a diet rich in diversity, a diet rich in history, and a diet rich in fun. And we worked together on the Rosendale birthday party in 1994 that we put together in, I think it was 2.5 days, Gail? Yes. And we had a marvelous time. The town gave us a $300 budget. We had a 10-day party. We came in under budget. And that's the way it was, hanging out with Diet Rich.
One thing Dietrich really treasured was going up to Woodcrest and visiting with all the families there, and they were very special to him. And I'd like to bring up John Trapnell.
Thank you. Dietrich was certainly a very good friend to our family up there, and there were many occasions when we had some very good times together. Gail reminded me of that occasion when he came up and did Santa Claus for all of us. It was actually a big shop party with 2 communities together, and we were just instigating or starting a program just in time. I'm not sure if anybody's aware of that. It's something Toyota uses, reducing inventory and so on, and you make parts for whatever equipment or vehicles or whatever. Instead of making gayloads of them, you just do as they needed, a few at a time. So anyhow, we had him, he came up and we took him to a little back room and got him all dressed up in a suit and told him a few things that he should do and say, and who he should, whose leg he should pull and so on. And it was great because he had this German accent and people thought he was from Germany. And we had a community in Germany at the time and couldn't figure it out. Nobody could figure out who that was. And then we said, now Santa wants a just-in-time haircut. You know, not long planning and stuff, and nobody would give him one. And then finally I said, okay, I'll have to do it. And I got some clippers out and I started cutting his, well, he had his full suit, you know, beautiful red suit on and everything. And people still couldn't believe it. How? Real hair, it was real plenty of it. And I'm not sure if that was the last haircut he ever had, but it was a good one and he enjoyed it. And we certainly enjoyed that occasion, and many people have asked since, can we get Dietrich again? And now we won't be able to. We were actually talking about it this last year. Anyhow, yeah, we've appreciated him and for everything he's done in this area and for Rosendale and for the future. There's a lot of heritage that he has preserved, and for all people actually. So we thank you very much.
I'd like to bring up Annie Lawrence, and perhaps Annie could tell about the unique relationship that you have with the Snyder estate, Watson E. Lawrence, and also being a good friend of Dietrich's prior to the acquisition of the Snyder estate. Annie?
I don't know whether many of you remember me, but I lived on Hardenberg Lane in one of Dietrich's apartments from I think about 1979 through the early 80s with Bill Harper. And so anyhow, I always loved it up here, but like many people, I could not find a job. So I ended up moving down to New York City and getting a job at Literacy Volunteers, which really began my whole career in adult education. Well, I kept touch with Dietrich because my father was a stamp collector and a coin collector, and I didn't know anyone who I could contact that would know about it. So I called up Dietrich. So we kept on staying in touch over the years, and then finally about 2-3 years ago, he found me again. And my sister, Liz Lawrence, is married to Vinnie Martucci, who live in Woodstock, and he said, you know, isn't your ancestor Watson Effingham Lawrence? And I said, well, as a matter of fact, he is. That's the portrait we had in our dining room. And he said, did you know that he owned a cement company in Rosendale? And I said, no. I didn't know anything about it. But after my father died and we cleared out the house, I found a lot of documents. One of them was a contract with Watson E. Effingham to build the federal building in New York City. So through Dietrich, I became in touch with a lot of my family history, and I joined the Historical Society. And I hadn't been able to get up here because I live in Red Bank, New Jersey. But both Norman, my husband, and I, you know, have been thinking, well, this is where we want to settle again. Because I had never really left the area. I've always loved it here. And Dietrich came up this fall to my family house up in Arkville. And we had a tremendous time. You know, my husband is a wonderful cook, and he cooked crabs and oysters, and I shared with him the history of the house that my great-grandfather built. And it's just so sad because I was looking forward to spending and sharing a lot more time with him. Thank you.
Hence, we have Lawrenceville and Watson E. Lawrence. That's why we have the cement industry there, and why we today call it Lawrenceville. A really interesting connection. One of the things I wanted to point out on the table is a fabulous piece that Phil Brown and Mickey O did, a limited edition poster. And if you get a chance, just check it out. And I thank both of them. It's just beautiful. I'd like to call up another caver, Art Rafferty, who we've worked with on a lot of the NROs. And Art's also a fabulous cook, so Dietrich was very fond of him.
Hello, how are you doing? My name is Art. I've been caving for about like 20 years, and when I first started caving, we used to have like, you know, these NRO events at like different locations. But when it was the first time I was held at like at the, you know, the Widow Jane mine, like I was just like so like impressed, you know, about like the uniqueness of the property and you know, the uniqueness of the people. I mean, it's like it was a come together community. You know, people coming from like all the different states, and it was just like such a like great sense of camaraderie. And you know, this camaraderie was led by, you know, Dietrich and Gail. You know, they you know, they're like, you know, the key people, like driving force of, you know, like bring everything together. Now, like I've been like chairman of the club for like 2 years now. So about 2 years ago, it was like my turn like to do like one of these NRO events. Now, what was happening was there's like this bat disease, white nose syndrome, like in the bat populations just about that time. And there was a big worry about like caving could go on or couldn't go on. And you know, it's kind of like a big worry about like if anybody would actually even show up at like one of these events. I remember like, you know, the start of the state. So like I approached Dietrich to like hold the event there. And yeah, I tell you, he's just like such a friendly guy. He was like perfectly willing to work with me and offer details and like suggestions. And you know, he was able to let me like go with my ideas. I had some like ideas like of my own. And you know, for all the worry, it turned into like excellent event. We were able to have some like music in mind. I heard some musicians. We had like, you know, the typical food. I was able to bring in some of the people involved in the white nose fight to like, you know, actually do a presentation on that aspect of it. And you know, it's just like turned into a great event. You know, and I thank Dietrich. I thank Dietrich for that, for like opening up the property and you know, just like, you know, like pulling like turning this like thing around. It's like just like again, it's just like a sense of community in a time of crisis, people coming together, and you know, just like something that worked out. I came up here about 2 weeks before like Dietrich passed away. He was always willing to open up the camp, you know, the property to like, you know, camp out, or anybody would want to see the mine. And I was able to see him like the morning before I left. I'd say, you know, I'm glad I did. It's a good thing to do. Any chance you get to say something nice to somebody who you appreciate, you know, do it. It's a good thing to do. I was able to see him that morning. I thanked him for letting me camp at the mine, and I let him know again how much I like that history room. That's like, you know, such a nice room for like the history of Rosendale and the history of the mine. Anyway, thank you, Dietrich. Shine on.